Hello everybody and welcome back to the latest episode of the Turfcast podcast pre-game show with me, Joe Remis. We are finally back after a few weeks off and pretending the Man City game didn't exist simply for my own mental health, if I'm being perfectly honest with you. Even if we stay up, we should just do that for now and just pretend that game doesn't exist. Let's all go about our daily lives, then this is what I did anyway. I went about my daily life, pretended the game didn't exist, didn't bother doing a pod for it or after it, but still went on the game and got frustrated anyway. So it didn't really work. But yeah. To be honest, it were a case of I tried to get a few City fans on. No one were responding, so I just thought, sod it then, we're just going to get beat anyway, so what's the point? But it's a big one now, and I'm not going to waste any time before getting into the interview, because you all know how big this game is. I don't need to show any of you the league table. I don't need to show any of you the connotations of what happens if we get beat, or if we win, or if we win this and then win against Norwich. And I think they're playing someone decent at the weekend as well, so if we beat them, we could be a point above them by Saturday night. But do any of us think that's going to happen? I know I don't. But yeah, let's get into it. I spoke with Thomas from the Toffee Blues, which is, of course, an Everton podcast, YouTube channel and fan page. And just like that, we are joined by Thomas from the Toffee Blues, an Everton podcast, YouTube channel and fan page. How you doing, mate? You all right?
Yeah, not too bad. Thanks for having us on.
Yeah, not too bad apart from the football.
Yeah, well, to be honest, I think we could both agree on that point. But hopefully things improve.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a miserable game played by two miserable teams, watched by two miserable sets of fans in what's looking like miserable weather. So if anyone's coming up from Everton, fair play to you, because I'm not sure I'll be travelling down to an away game in this state. But let's get into it then. What are your thoughts on your current position? Like, looking at the players that you've got, you shouldn't be in this position, should you?
No, absolutely not. Based on quality, that we shouldn't be anywhere near, really. I think based on mentality, I'm not sure it's surprised too many of our fans. We've had problems with mentality for quite a few years, kind of bottling things. But in the past, it's been bottling top 10 finishes and bottling Europe. Yeah. It's never quite been this dire. But yeah, looking at the quality of the squad, there's no reason why we should be down here. General, obviously, mismanagement from Benitez and Lampard hasn't exactly hit the ground running. Have definitely helped kind of put us down there. But look, I'm hoping that we do have the quality to keep ourselves up. But compared to obviously yourselves, you kind of, well, no disrespect, but you kind of do this every season. You end up in relegation fights, apart from that seventh finish that you had. So, and if I'm in a relegation fight, would I rather more quality or more mentality? I think I'd pick mentality over that any day, purely because I'm sure that the match on Wednesday isn't going to be a tremendous high quality affair. No. I think it's going to be more of a scrap than anything. And on home turf, obviously, and for yourselves being in this situation before, I am slightly nervous.
Yeah. So what do you put it down to then? You've mentioned Benitez, you've mentioned Lampard. Is it not more of a hierarchy thing, or is it like just a mentality thing, or is it a collection of pretty much everything you've mentioned?
Yeah, it's basically, I think, anything that could go wrong over the past couple of years basically has. The recruitment's been shambolic, and although we do have some good quality players, you look at the likes of Richarlison and Calvert-Lewin, people wonder why we are down there, but there's kind of a lack in strength and depth in the squad, and that comes down to the recruitment. And it's also kind of the players that we've signed. They just haven't been up to the standard, and maybe they haven't kind of signed up to the philosophy that we expect. And because of the constant changing of managers we've had over the couple of years, and no more than in this season, there's been different styles. We've had defensive kind of under Ancelotti, much more under Allardyce. We've then had Martinez, Lampard's come in trying to play slightly more on the front foot, and we just don't really have the personnel for it. So it is a mentality problem. Definitely, we've signed a lot of players who aren't up for the fight whatsoever. And although we kind of thought, I think we'd got rid of a couple of them over the past few years, we seem to have a bit of a clear out. We seem to have ended up with so much more. So it is definitely a combination of everything, basically.
What's the feeling like amongst the fans then? Because I think the feeling amongst the Burnley fans is the majority of us have given up now, and I'm resigned to it now. We had a bit of a resurgence in February when we beat Spurs, we beat Brighton, and we drew with Palace. Obviously, Arsenal have just gone to Palace and been absolutely murdered, so that, it just shows how much of a good result it were. I think we're looking then like maybe, just maybe, we'd pull ourselves out of it. But we've had chances to get our heads above water. We played Leicester at home, and if we'd have won that, we'd have gone like 16th or something like that. And we've just never really been able to carry on and move out of the transfer window, out of the relegation zone. So a lot of Burnley fans are giving up. What's the feeling amongst Evertonians?
There's definite fear factor going on. We don't really find ourselves down here too much, and although we have been down here a couple of times in a couple of seasons ago, we were out of it fairly early, and then it just became a bang average season after that. So we've never quite been in such a dire situation. I wouldn't say it's given up necessarily amongst the entire fan base. It's more kind of there's been a lot of denial for most of the season that we were down there, and people kind of expecting that we'd kind of find our way out, and we just haven't. I mean, I haven't personally given up purely because I expect us to have the quality to see us through, and we do have the couple of games in hand. We still have to play yourselves and Watford, so there's routes out for everybody. I think that's the thing. I don't think long gone are the days where teams need 40 points to stay up, and that was secure. It seems these days it's 34, 35 that's maybe going to keep you up, which is only a few more wins for ourselves and Watford, and only kind of 4 or something. I'm not sure for yourselves how many points you are at this point. I think every team still has a route out. I think ours is obviously the best route out, despite the fact we do have some tricky fixtures. We do just have more matches to take opportunities in. So I wouldn't say everyone's given up, but it's getting towards that point, and even kind of people are kind of starting to seriously worry about us going down.
Yeah, well, you're in the enviable position of being above the relegation zone, of course. We're well in it. Just for those of you who don't know the Premier League table off the top of your head, it's currently Norwich on bottom with 18 points, 30 games played. Burnley second bottom, 21 points, 28 games played. So just like yourselves, we have the couple of games in hand. Then Watford above us, 22 points, 30 games played. Then obviously Everton just above the danger zone, 28 games played, 25 points. Then come Leeds on 30, 31 played. Newcastle 31, 30 played. And then Brentford, who I think are probably out of it now after their impressive win at Stamford Bridge at the weekend. So obviously we win this, it's 1 point on the same games played between ourselves and you. So it's massive. And then obviously you have that ridiculous running that is, just looks, I think that's the only thing working in our favour at the minute is we have the more favourable running. However, we've won 3 games all season, and I'm looking at that, and like I'm saying, you've got to win probably a minimum. I've been saying 5, so that'll take us on to 36 points, minimum 5, and a couple of draws just to be safe. You could probably sneak out of it if other teams are dreadful with 4 wins and a few draws. What do you think Everton need to do now to get out of this?
It's really tricky to say because we can always say, oh, it's come down to tactics, it's come down to this, that. But at this point in the season, it's very much. Hello?
I'm still here, mate. I've just made you full screen.
Oh, right. Sorry. So at this point of the season, it's now just come towards. It's just going to be an absolute scrap for points. We won at Newcastle a couple of weeks ago. Well, no, it was at Goodison Park. We won against Newcastle. It wasn't a high quality game, and we scored in the 99th minute. It was a ridiculous match, and that's all relegation fights kind of come down to in the end, really, purely because it's basically impossible to say how we're going to find points, but someone's got to find them eventually. The way I see it, it's ourselves, Burnley and Watford in kind of just a mini league now. I kind of see Leeds, Newcastle, Brentford out of it because I think they only need a few more points each, and they'll probably just about be fine. And obviously, we are in a 3-team mini league that only one team is going to come out of. So I think it's really tricky to say what we actually need, because it's such an unpredictable run-in, because we do have very tricky fixtures, but I still back us to find something along the way. And of course, having to play yourselves and Watford, I mean, there's your opportunities to stay up right there. I think that's your golden chance. And towards the end of the season, we do have Brentford and Palace. So, I mean, I know Palace are doing very well at the moment, but aside from the tricky run-in, there are a couple of games which we could get results from. And of course, we might sneak a couple of points or a win off one of the trickier games as well.
But yeah, but you mentioned there that we have winnable games, and of course yourselves do towards the end of the season. As a Burnley fan, like I said, I have personally given up. I have a column in one of the local newspapers, and I've said it in the most recent one. People look at Burnley, they go, but it's Burnley, they'll find a way out of it. They'll probably beat Everton and then beat Watford and then beat Norwich, because that's what they do. That's not Burnley this season. Like, there was a few seasons ago where we had to beat Cardiff, and if we didn't beat Cardiff, they'd have come above us or whatever. And you just knew that Burnley would go into that game and give everything and probably win it, or if not, at least give a very good account of themselves. That's just not the case this season. You're going into these games with zero confidence that they can do that. So I'm not looking forward to tomorrow's game at all. I'm sure you're not as well, to be fair. I think both sets of fans are going to be just as nervous. But what sort of game are you expecting then on Wednesday at the Turf?
scrappy. I can't see that. I mean, if either side does find any quality, they'll win the game kind of early on, really. But I can't see that happening. Both sets of players, are going to be very nervous. As people have said in the past years, Turf Moor's a very tricky place to come to. Maybe not as much this season, but I'm sure if your squad wanted an opportunity, I'm sure Sean Dyche should be telling them right now, this is your opportunity to get out of it. Basically, this is your opportunity to potentially keep yourselves in the league. So I think both sets of players will be very nervous, and I think this is maybe one of your worst performing years in terms of points and in the position you find yourselves. And because I don't know, I mean, I don't know that's just vaguely off the top of my head, but you seem to never been kind of down in 19th at this point. You seem to be kind of pushing out, and you've kind of started your rejuvenation by now.
Oh,
yeah. So I think both sets of players are going to be very nervous. I'd imagine there's not going to be a tremendous amount of goals. It might come down to one, maybe two, or it might be a draw in the end, of course. But whichever side takes a hold of the game early on will take it. I think purely because both sets of players will be under so much pressure to find a result. So if they feel they're on the back foot, you start thinking about the rest of the season. You start thinking about where you are. That's when you start getting very nervous. So I'm hoping, well, for ourselves anyway, I'm sure whichever side kind of goes into the game, takes by the scruff of the neck, in theory should win, despite there not being a tremendous amount of good football on show.
I agree with what you're saying in the case of any team that shows a bit of quality will probably go on to win the game. And that is what worries me, because we don't have quality. When you look at the two teams, the Everton squad is obviously the Everton starting 11 even. It is much better. I'd say that for pretty much anyone down there compared to us, apart from Norwich and Watford. You've got a better squad. Leeds have got a better squad. Newcastle have got a better squad. Brentford have now got a better squad with Torre and, of course, Eriksen. So, yeah, that is the bit that worries me, if I'm being honest. I think you have the quality to be able to get on the front foot to take the game to us. We've got players that can hurt people, though. Corey, Weghorst. The only problem is with Weghorst is he's not playing in a system that kind of suits him at the minute. That's the problem. Dyche hasn't been able to find a system that works for him. He's still playing his old Chris Woods up front, which is just prehistoric football when it doesn't work, when you don't have that type of player up there. So it's we need to find something that we haven't shown at all at any point during the course of this season. But we'll get into some predictions. First of all, mate, I'm going to get your prediction for obviously the game on Wednesday. What score do you think it's going to be?
I can't see either side keeping a clean sheet, because I know if we go 1-0 up, we will concede. But I'm hoping we're relying on a moment of brilliance from someone like Richarlison. So I'm going to go 2-1 Everton, purely because we will concede, and especially if we go 1-0 up. And I just hope we'll just about find a way through it.
We are okay at the back. Having said that, some of the goals are conceded against Man City. All right, it's Man City, but still they were poor. We're pretty shambolic. I just think it's good. Like I said, two nervous teams, two miserable teams, two nervous sets of fans. So the atmosphere is going to be shite. I'm going 0-0. I just think both teams are going to be too nervous, probably too nervous to commit. But in the end, that's a better result for you. So I think you would probably just about take that. Having said that, obviously you've got the ridiculous running. And I think Watford are your main threat now, if I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. I don't think it's us, which is a shame to say, because, I thought for ages that we'd do it, but these last 3-4 weeks have proper knocked it out of me. Next prediction then, mate. Who do you think is going down?
It's so tricky to say, purely because, as we mentioned, the strength of the teams that we still have to come up against. People keep telling us, and I'm sure they say it to you as well, oh, games in hand. That doesn't really matter at this point in the season. I'm not really bothered about games
since
in hand.
Like December, and it's just we've played some of these games in hand now. We haven't won one of them, well, apart from the first one, but we've been dire in most of them.
Yeah, no, but people keep telling me, oh, don't worry, you've got games at hand. That doesn't work when it's, well, Burnley at Turf Moor and then Manchester City or Leicester, I think it is. I'm not really sure who it is, but they're not ideal games at hand at all. I can see us just about getting out of it purely based on, not that we're too good to go down, but we just have a couple of players who might be able to find something over the next 10 games that will kind of scrape us to maybe 34 points, 35 points, which I think will probably be enough to keep us up, purely because, I don't know, I can see Watford running out of steam. They kind of do this every season, and then seems like a couple of games to go, they don't have much left. That might come back to bite me, and I hope it doesn't. But and just for yourselves, maybe it's just one season too many, despite the fact you have brought in Weghorst, who I was nervous about until you mentioned there that you haven't found a system to play him in. So I hope Dyche doesn't find that by Wednesday. But right now, I think it will remain pretty much the way it is.
Can't see Norwich have been dead since they won the Championship. Watford, like I said, I do believe they're your main threat, but I do think they'll probably run out of steam. And we have a very, 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 very slim chance, but we have to win on Wednesday. But I've said this before the Brighton game, I said it before the Leeds away game, I said it before the Newcastle away game. I've said it so many times that we have to win this game. We've been going into these games and not winning them, not even showing up, not looking like they want to be there. So I have no confidence whatsoever for the Wednesday game that we will just suddenly turn into Burnley. I tell you what, if we get out of this from this position, it's got to be one of the greatest escapes of all time. Probably just only picked by that West Brom one in the early 2000s.
I think Sean Dyche should be knighted. I think, especially if you lose on Wednesday, and he's still playing away.
Yeah, rightly so, mate. But yeah, I'm at peace with it now. I just want the season to end. If I'm being honest with you, I hope nobody's listening to this hoping for some positivity, because you ain't going to get any of me recently after the recent games. But yeah, that's it. We'll wrap it up here, mate. Just want to let everyone know where they can find you and your obviously fan channel and podcast, etc.
So all our social media is Everton News Feed. So if you look on Twitter, Instagram, anything like that, that's where you can find. My name's Thomas Robertson. I appear on various videos. I won't link my Twitter, but I will appear a couple of times, and we will be having an opposition view on our channel as well. So be sure to check out that. But yeah, just Everton News Feed on basically everything.
Thanks for coming on, Thomas, and we will see you next time.
Thank you.